What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I decided to make this video here today at home. Basically, I've finished everything I needed to do today. I don't have anything else to edit, and I hate feeling like I'm wasting my time. So I figured I'd make this video here. So sorry for the lack of visual stimulus. I will probably edit bits and pieces in throughout the video to try and make it a bit more exciting for everyone. But regardless, I have had a fair bit of interest, which is pretty obvious. I thought I would, about how much the 31 Rebirth actually cost me. So I thought I'd do a bit of a video, break it all down and try and count up some of the costs, and we'll see how much this car has probably cost me realistically. I've got a pretty good idea. I do have a pretty good idea of what I think it would be, but we'll go through and start adding stuff up. So I just ordered my tyres for morning sesh this Thursday, and yeah, I was pretty much dead set on not going because I'm pretty broke, but Adam sort of talked me into going, and so I've ordered my tyres and now I'm going. So yeah, I guess pretty much me and Adam as well, I'm gonna try and get it out to the workshop on Wednesday morning and pull the hot side off and weld on an external gate and try and get it all back together and get back here on Wednesday night so that we can go to morning session Thursday. So it's going to be a bit of a mission, but it's what I built the car for, so may as well try and do it. And after that, it's probably going to be my last little blowout of drifting heaps since the car got finished. After that, I sort of need to start looking at getting stuff together for Matsuri and getting ready for that and making sure the car's ready, make sure I have the funds and you know, all the rest of the stuff that comes with Matsuri prep. So this is morning sesh, probably going to be the last of this, if this little bit of finish the car. Let's try and get to every event if we can for a little while until I sort that out, because I've got to buy oil coolers, a few other things to get the car really sorted and reliable. But anyway, hopefully we can get this hot side sorted and get it to the track, see how it goes. Anyway, enough of that, we'll get on with this video. So I suppose first and foremost is the shell. I bought the shell back non-rolling with the EH diff under it, just with the interior still in it and the standard front end and all that. Didn't have a brake booster, didn't have any brake lines, didn't have any fuel lines, no fuel tank, nothing like that. I paid 500 back for the shell. So after that, I suppose I'll start at the rear of the car and work my way forward. So the diff, I actually got a complete unit, disc to disc. Already had the twin calipers on it with the twin caliper mounts. It came with the traction arms, everything, all the arms, all had good bushes. Came with my hydro handle as well, my hydraulic handbrake and master. Also came with the headlights and Rio, which I obviously needed because I bought the headlights and Rio off that shell from Luke to fix Rex's when Rex binned it. So I got that all as one big package. Oh, and the infill panels and stuff. So that all came as like a big package. It also came with my standard S13 knuckles. So that all came as a big package, which was a really good start. And that actually just happened to pop up literally on the way home from when I decided to buy my shell back. So me and Rex had gone to get parts or something from somewhere. Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, I decided to buy my shell back. I went to pick up a gearbox from Kingaroy, which I'll get to in a minute. On the way back from picking up the gearbox, all this stuff popped up for sale on Facebook, and I was like, the stars all just aligned, and I just bought it all in one big hit, and yeah, it worked out perfect. But anyway, so for all that was another 500, so that's yeah, $1,000 straight up. So then there was the gearbox. The gearbox just happened to pop up for sale pretty close to where we are at the workshop. So I bought that for $200 from just a bloke out there. It didn't come with a shifter or anything, but I already had some laying around. I actually got a shifter off Adam. But yeah, didn't have a throw-up bearing carrier, didn't have a clutch fork, didn't have any sensors or a speedo drive sensor, but luckily I had a lot of that lying around. So that's the other thing I should mention in this video, is that it's not completely accurate as far as building one yourself because of how many parts I had just lying around or left over from old builds and having the car previously. So I did have a lot of parts just lying around that I could utilize, and that's part of the reason I decided to buy the shell back, because I knew it would get me to the track sooner for less money. So this is how much it cost me. It's probably not a very accurate indication of how much it would cost someone to build it. themselves. So just a heads up. So gearbox, that was 200 bucks. So we're up to 1200 there. Me and Liam went halves in that Pintara shell. Well, not halves, I paid a bit extra for it, but we both got what we wanted out of it. So that Pintara shell got me my brake lines, my brake booster. It got me my fuel tank and fuel lines. So that Pintara has been very handy, that thing. It's been good to have. I'm glad I bought that shell. So that got me all of that stuff that I needed. That was $300 was my share, so we're up to an even 1500. So that's pretty good still. The fuel pump I already had. Yeah, like a lot of the rest of the stuff I already had. Like I was saying, the rear end setup pretty much just went straight in. Had the spare extra sway bar that I did my dual sway bar mount setup and all that sort of stuff. There's not much else super involved with that. So I suppose from the rear of the car, we'll move up to, now we've done gearbox. The tail shaft was given to me by Daniel Eldershaw. So that was really cool to grab that from him. Obviously the center bearing and the CV weren't that great, but I also was given another auto tail shaft from another bloke, Andrew Stanmore. So between the two tail shafts, I managed to get a good one out of the both and use a brand new center bearing, and that was all good. So that tail shaft setup pretty much cost me nothing. So then we've got the gearbox. Then we've got the clutch. The clutch I had lying around. So the clutch was just a brand new flywheel that I had lying around from a part out, and a second-hand clutch that I had lying around from a part out. So just a quick whiz of the flywheel, bang it all together, all good. The slave was new. The master was still on the car for the clutch master, so it was still in the shell when I bought it back. So that was again another really cheap setup, cheap thing in the car, which was because of how many parts I had lying around. So from there we come to the engine. As a lot of you know, the engine was rebuilt for $300 worth of parts. So that was just main bearings, VRS gasket kit. It was new spigot bush. I can't remember exactly what else, but yeah, reused a lot of stuff through that engine. Got me out of a lot of things. But yeah, as you would have saw from the episodes, went through all the head, lapped all the valves, new valve stem seals that came with the VRS gasket kit. New head gasket, reused head bolts, reused rings, reused pistons rods, reused rod bearings, just replaced the main bearings. Reused an old water pump that was off an RB25, reused an old rear main seal cover plate that was pretty new that I came off an RB25 as well. So all the ancillaries I had lying around, had an RB25 alternator lying around. The power steering setup was all still left in the shell, completely sealed. So that literally still got the same power steering fluid in it as when I used to drift it now. So that was all that was all already there. So that was pretty good. Like I got out of that pretty cheap. That was awesome. So that was what, another $300 worth of parts for the engine. So we're up to our 1800. Obviously on the engine as well, there are a few things I spent a little bit of money on. We've got that harmonic balancer, the 25% underdriven harmonic balancer, which I bought specifically just because of the use of a harmonic balancer I feel is very important in a drift car because of the nature of drifting and the RPM you do. Not only that, I wanted the 25% underdriven, again because of RPM, so that really saves obviously water cavitating. It saves power steering cavitating, getting too hot and shooting power steering pump seals and that sort of thing. So very useful thing that I figured I'd only have to buy once. Like that harmonic balancer I'll pretty much probably keep with me through every RV build I do. So I decided to spend the money and get it. So that comes up to so that's another 300. So we have $2,100. Righto, so up to 2,100 as a total with the harmonic balancer on the engine. So yeah, that's something I sort of lashed out a bit on. After that, we've got the hot side. So we've got the hot side. I paid $150 for that manifold from Ken Casey, for all of you that are pretty into the Southeast Queensland R31 scene. So that was awesome because that's how much I actually sold a factory cast manifold for a few months before I bought the shell back, which I was actually spewing about because when I bought the shell back, as you guys all knew, I really wanted to go with the cast manifold because of the issues I had with stainless beforehand. So I was spewing. I didn't think I would be able to pick one up for as much as I sold my last one for, but 150, that's how much I sold the last one for. So the fact that I was managed to pick that up, that was awesome. So that was So that brings it up to $22.50 so far total. The turbo was about $250. I think it was probably a bit less, but we'll go with $250 to be safe, because I think it was about $230 or so. So what's that? We're up to $2,500 there. So that was just eBay spec turbo, as a lot of yous already know. The oil feed line, I repurposed a stock hard line off an RB25 turbo feed, bent it up, made it work, and then the return was pretty easy with a few fittings and that. Again, I used the return flange thing off a standard 20 turbo and just cut it down to make it suit, and then with some soft line into the return hole in the block. So we're up to 2,500. From there, the rear end of the car, the exhaust, all cost me nothing. I already had all them hot dogs lying around. Even then, I think those hot dogs were about $50 each, but I bought them years and years ago. All of the exhaust pipe that I used was a whole heap of just mandrel bent exhaust that I got for pretty much nothing off a bloke at one point. So I've got a whole heap of that, which I scored, which is coming really handy for lots of things. So then we've got the cold side, which the forward-facing plenum I paid $100 for, again, years ago. So if we had to add the 3 hot dogs, that's $150 plus $100 for the forward-facing. That's $27.50. I bought my GTR injectors for $200, so that got me my injectors, which were a pretty good setup. Again, that sort of blew out the budget a bit, but I was sort of happy to get some good injectors out of it, which was good. The fuel rail was $150, that's just an eBay special, so we're up to $3,100 now. So that's pretty much the cold side sorted. The ECU setup, I can't remember. Me and Rex worked out something. Because Rex bought a Microtech LT8. I had the opportunity to buy that MT8 back, which used to power mine, which is powering it now. Rex decided he would buy that back instead of using the one that he bought, because he knew that one was good and it had my old tune on it, which was good for him at the time. So when I decided to buy the shell back, it was decided that I traded him injectors or something. I traded him something that I had for that other ECU that he had. And as it's turned out, I've ended up with my old ECU in the car just because it's convenient, because I haven't actually copied the maps onto the other Microtech yet. But either way, I got out for that for pretty much nothing. That was pretty much trading my old parts for some of Rex's parts and getting out of that. So that was pretty good. So that was my ECU setup. Honestly, the rest of it... Oh, what do we got? Front end setup, sorry. Duh. So, totally forgot about my front end setup. So apart from the ECU, the adjustable fuel pressure regulator I had lying around, it was just an old China one. Again, I can't remember where it came from. It came from a part out or something like that. So that's another thing I had lying around. That was essentially my entire fuel system sorted. So after that, we've got the front end of the car. So the control arms I paid $50 for, which was a pretty good score. So that's $31.50 we're up to. The knuckles, I already told you guys about where those knuckles came from. They came in all that gear. I bought the front brakes. Those standard front brakes I think I bought for about $40, and then the upgraded ones, which I put in after the first shakedown, I bought them for $100. So what are we up to now? $32.50. So the other obvious pretty important thing I have in the front end of this car is the GK Tech V2 roll center correction kit, roll center correction piece. Just gonna have to look on their website to remember how much that actually cost, because I cannot remember. Righto, so the GK Tech V2 roll center correction piece from GK Tech costs $220 Australian. So then you've got to account for your shipping. Plus I ordered, I think, some wheel nuts, a GK Tech brass shifter bush for that gearbox that I bought. Plus I did end up then also getting wheel spacers, which was, again, that was like $260 worth. So I would say that I've spent probably at least $600 on stuff from GK Tech for the build. So that's including my wheel spacers, which aren't a super necessary thing. I just really wanted them to fit the wheels properly. Actually, it would be less than that, because the slip-on ones I didn't work. So if you don't account for the cost of them, which would have been like probably $150, so we'll call it $450 instead. So we're up to $3,700 with that stuff. So itching up to that $4,000 mark. So some other stuff that I bought for the car. some the RB Factory hydraulic handbrake mount, as well as the RB Factory brake master stopper. That was about $100, I think, all up. Plus we've got the S13 strut brace, which was another $100. So there we are, up to $3,900 with that gear. So then outside of that, there's not really anything big or notable worth mentioning on its own. But we do have, I would put at least $800+ worth of just random stuff you get from your local automotive shop. So obviously I get a lot of my stuff through Repco here in Caloundra on the coast. They're pretty helpful. So things like rack ends, tie rod ends. Yeah, there's rack ends, like tie rod ends, things like ball joints, center bearing, bushes, just random bushes here and there, just fluids, just random stuff. Like this is being shit. Drop my phone. So this is being very realistic in the sense of things you do need to buy that do just rear their ugly head that you need to do. It's just, you need to account for it if you're going to build a car. It is pretty important for you to account for that, because those things are what breaks the budget. You can think about a car that you want to build. You can think about every notable thing that you're going to put into it. You could think about all the running gear, everything you're going to do, and you could have a budget in your head. And at the end of the day, these little things that you got to buy from places like Repco, things like little gaskets, fluids and ball joints and bearings and bushes and just all this stuff, brake pads and whatever. Obviously I never bought brake pads, but either way, realistically, like I was saying, I would put probably $800 from Repco just in stuff that I needed to buy. So we're up to $4,700 there. So we're reaching pretty close to that like $5,000. By the time I put steer tires on, my Nankang NS2Rs, by the time I add them in, we're at $5K. Outside of that, obviously paying for tires to burn, but you can't, as a drift car, that's expected. So the TI wheels, I traded those 17-inch GTR replicas for those TI wheels from Rex. So that's how I got my TI wheels, which was very awesome because I'm very happy with those. And I don't think I've forgotten anything. I'm pretty sure that's just about everything on the car. Oh, sorry. In that $800 as well is included the things like intake pipe. So my entire intake, the silicon bends, the stainless bends, that's all included in that $800 of just stuff that I sort of got from Repco or around the place. Just random little fiddly things that aren't notably worth mentioning on their own, but they definitely add up. So that would be, I had a pretty good idea. I thought about $4,500, but going through it all, obviously it's a fair bit closer to $5,000. But that is accounting for tires and a lot of right down the little things. Things like my hydraulic handbrake line is, again, that's another thing that I accounted for in that sort of $800 chunk. So yeah, there was lots of little things I had to buy. I had to buy new soft lines for the VS calipers for the hydro setup to go back to the hard lines on the diff, because they had been either flogged or exploded or something had happened, they weren't there. So it's just, yeah, a lot of those little things that add up, and that's what that big chunk of $800 worth-ish is about. I feel like that's a pretty safe estimate, but it's better to be safe than to be looking for money. So $5,000, that's still pretty cheap drift car for considering the, oh, I forgot the coilovers, of course. The coilovers, the suspension, yeah, that's not important. So that was, what, $340. So yeah, to be completely safe, you call it 5.5. But yeah, it's, for considering what the car is, how well it's going, how well it handles, and its intended purpose, which is it's doing very well at. It's yeah, it's a pretty damn good car for the money. So can't complain with the money for what I ended up with. Again, there's pretty much the only thing I really have left to do to the car, apart from sort out this wastegate issue, which I already have the wastegate, so I should get out of that for nothing. But I do have to buy an oil cooler kit, which I expect to be probably another $200. So if you account for the coilovers plus the oil cooler, which I haven't bought yet, but I will have to buy, that's $5,500. But at that point, I've got a pretty serious car that should be very, very reliable. Having that oil cooler will keep them oil temps down. And after that, the car should be dead set. Once I get this gate issue sorted and it's running 10 pound and that hot side is doing a lot better, then this car should be pretty well sorted and very, very, very reliable. So there you have it, guys. That's pretty much all the costs accounted for my R31 rebirth, rebuild, whatever you'd like to call it. Like I said, I did have a fair bit of interest in people wondering how much this rebirth actually did cost me, which, as I said, is very understandable. I almost expected that. Obviously, I didn't document all of the costs throughout the build simply because, again, it's one of those things where a lot of those parts I had lying around, so I figured it wasn't a very accurate representation of how much it was costing me because I already had so much of the stuff. So I figured it wasn't worth documenting the build costs the way I did for, say, Liam's R31 or the way we have been for Adam's Cressida up until recently. I did, yeah, there was a lot of interest, so I thought I'd make this video sort of just doing a bit of a quick cost count so that you all had a general idea of how much this thing has cost me. Like I said, I'm stoked with it for the money. I suppose the other things I should point out is the intercooler came with the shell when I bought it back, so I got the intercooler back. The seat I already had, my steering wheel setup I already had. The Defi I had, it was about 80 bucks. I bought that from Alex Brown. That was earmarked to go on the Crusader, but I thought I'd use it and then buy another one for the Crusader down the track. The Innovate AFR that I bought, that was about $300 delivered. I don't really account that for the cost of this car though, because I do not plan on leaving it in the 31 forever. So I bought that Innovate AFR so that I personally have an AFR gauge, so that for future builds I have a AFR gauge. I really like that Innovate as well. It reads in Lambda too, which for those of you who run E85, Lambda's more important than AFR by the time you go to hybrid fuels and different sort of fuels. So very happy with that Innovate AFR, but it's not exactly a cost of the 31 because I don't plan on leaving it in there. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully this answered a fair few of you who were wondering. Hopefully you've got a pretty good idea now. Sorry, hopefully it's not too boring. Sorry about the lack of visual stimulus where I am, but like I said, I didn't have much else to do today and I hate feeling like I'm wasting my time, and I knew this was the video I wanted to make, so I will make a video going into depth about the history of this car, why it's important to me, and where it came from, because I've picked up a lot of following and subscribers since I started this rebirth, so a lot of you guys who are viewing now probably don't understand the significance of this car to the channel. And at this point, how many people have been involved in getting it to where it is now. So I do plan on doing a complete explanation, going through the car from front to back, and a bit of a history of the car as well. But I will get to that one day, but I just wanted to get this out there because there was a lot of people wondering about the costs involved in this car. Anyway, so far so good. The bin motor has put up with its punishment. As you have seen from the driving footage, I have been not being very kind to it, and it is going strong. So no complaints. Gearbox has survived. Can't ask for much more, so I want to get this gate issue sorted out so that it brings just ambient temps in the bay and hopefully just exhaust gas temps, everything comes down a bit. That'll keep temperature under wraps. Once it's that, plus I can keep boost controlled properly, bring it back down to 10 psi, because the boost that it's running at the moment is sort of a bit playing with fire. Not to mention the fact that I have the open gate port so that it's actually quite doughy at the moment. So once I get this gate issue sorted, it'll be a bit more punchy, like it was the first Friday night drift I went to, but obviously I'll have the boost issue under wraps. I think it'll be a much better car to drive. Temps will be a lot better, so keep peeled for some more driving footage. Hopefully it's coming at you very soon. Definitely be doing hopefully a lot more out of car footage at morning session because it'll be daytime, so I'm hoping that I can get a lot more. I'll make a much nicer video for you guys. So thanks for watching. As always, hope you enjoy. Hope you're enjoying the content. Hope you're enjoying all the driving, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers guys, have a good one.